Okay, now that we're done with fluency, we're gonna move on to the daily task. In today's lesson, they go back over rounding, and we already did rounding in day one, so this should be pretty easy for you guys. There's actually a problem in this lesson today that you guys did on day one, so on Wednesday. So if you can find that one that repeats itself, you don't have to do it. So that's less work for you guys today. All right, let's get started. Okay, the first one says, the number 8,263 lies between 8,260 and 8,270 on the number line. Label all the other tick marks between 8,260 and 8,270. Is 8,263 closest to 8,260 or 8,270 on the number line? So this is almost exactly like what we do on a vertical number line. We're trying to decide if the number they're giving us, 8,263, is above or below the midline. So since the only place value that's different between these two numbers is the tens place, we're really just skip counting from 60 to 70. So we can skip count by ones. So we're going to start with 8,261 and keep skip counting. You can pause the video and I want you to fill this in on your own and then play it when you're done, and I'll do the same thing. Okay, so you guys should have your whole number line filled in. I don't know about you guys, but they didn't give us a whole lot of space, so this was kind of hard for me. I had to make sure to write really small. I had to erase in some points. I wish they had given us a little bit bigger of a number line. That would have been helpful. So if you think about it, right here, I pointed it out, 8,265 is the midpoint. So if we were going to do a vertical number line, we would label this number as the midpoint because 5 is halfway in between 0 and 10. So 65 is halfway in between 60 and 70. So 8,265 is halfway in between 8,260 and 8,270. So the number they're asking us about, 8,263, is right here. It's below the midpoint, and it's closer to 8,260. So we would round down. So I want you to just write a sentence here explaining which one it's closest to. So go ahead, pause the video, and write your sentence, and then we'll talk about the next one. Okay, we're going to look at B. I covered up the other two problems with a sheet of paper just to make it easier for you guys to see what we're doing, but it's the same sheet of paper. So it says, which hundred is 8,263 nearest to on the number line? Plot 8,200 and 8,300 on the two outermost spots on the number line below. Then plot 8,263 to prove your answer. So I want you to think about these as like our endpoints on a vertical number line, and then we're going to plot all the spots in between. So you can start by thinking about, well, what would the midpoint be, if that's helpful for you, or you could just skip count. Since everything after the hundreds place is a 0 in both these numbers, we're going to skip count by tens. So they tell us what the two hundreds are, and so the difference between these two numbers is 100, so we're going to skip count by tens. So go ahead and fill in the number line with each point so that we can plot this point. So go ahead, pause the video, skip counting by tens, fill in each point. Okay, so you should have all your points plotted, and I boxed in the midpoint. So the midpoint is the halfway point. And you can also, like, if you think back to what we did with fractions when we were doing benchmark fractions, halfway was just like the midpoint. So when we multiplied, 0, 1 whole, and 1/2, this is similar because the midpoint is our halfway. That would be our 1/2, our halfway point. Okay, so now what you guys need to do is find 8,263. So here, we may not have labeled this point. It could be in between 2 points. So I'm going to give you a hint, and then the rest you guys are going to do on your own. 8,260 is right here. 8,270 is... All right, the next page, this looks strangely familiar to me. So I'm not going to go over this, but I do want you guys to go back and see where you may have done this before in your packet. Yeah, this looks very similar to something we did a little while ago. So go back and see if you can find where we did this. I'm not going to go over it. Okay, the last page just asks you to round different numbers to different place values. So the first one, they want you to round to the nearest 100. Second one, they want you to round to the nearest 100, 100, and then they change it up. Then they want you to round to the nearest 1,000 and the nearest 1,000. So on Wednesday, I already did an example of how to round to the nearest 1,000. So I'm going to do an example of how to round to the nearest 100. So I'm going to do the first one as an example. The rest I want you to do on your own. So if I have 2,801, so I look at the number that's in the hundreds place. So I have 8 hundreds, and I'm going to draw myself a vertical number line. Now, remember, the lower end point is always the same 100 that you have here. So you're going to make everything after the hundreds place a 0, but you're going to keep the hundreds place the same. So it's 2,800. Since we're rounding to the nearest 100, we skip count up by just 100. So I'm going to add on 100, and that makes 2,900. My midpoint, well, if I think of what's half of 100, half of 100 is 50, so it's going to be 2,850 because I'm just adding 50 on. Another 50 would get me to 2,900. Okay, now I'm going to plot 2,801. Well, that's going to be so close to 2,800. It's just 1 point away. It's going to be very, very close. 2,801. So obviously I'm going to round down. It's much closer to 2,800 than it is to 2,900. And so that's what I got. And I'm going to put it in. It's rounded to 2,800. What I want you guys to do is complete this and then have your parents take a picture and text me your answers so I can check them. So if you see this video, I want you to have your parents take a picture just of this part here and text it to me so I can see that you guys got the right answer. If you don't have my phone number, you can ask Miss Johnston, or you can post a comment saying that you don't have my phone number and I'll text you. But I want to see that you guys did this part. So have your parents text a picture to me. All right, have a great weekend, guys. I'll talk to you on Monday.